Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there this morning and having yourselves a fantastic start to your day and a great week out there so far. Here to break down the latest on what's going to happen weather-wise for your Tuesday. The big storyline today is going to be strong to severe storms across a pretty large area of the country, at least running the risk of it. From the plains, the Midwest, the Great Lakes region, into the Midwest, experiencing some pretty nasty weather out there this morning. We'll speak a little bit on that and what that means into this afternoon to this evening. We'll get very detailed on that portion of the country. We'll talk about the heat that continues. Actual air temperatures will exceed over 100 to maybe as high as 110 degrees today, even outside. I'm not even talking about the desert Southwest. I'm talking about areas of the plains, maybe even the deep South. So we'll speak on that. We'll break all this down for you folks. Just know that today could be a day where the Storm Prediction Center makes changes to their outlooks throughout the morning hours into the afternoon. We could get a bump up to an enhanced risk. A pretty large slight risk is in place right now, but we could have some changes, and I'll kind of take my shot at what could change in the later updates from the Storm Prediction Center. After we discuss today's information, we will jump ahead and give you some updated information on the tropics. I'm watching an area way out in the Atlantic that could develop. A lot of other people are too in the weather community. So we will discuss this. We won't get super detailed on it, but we will show you some model guidance and talk about the chances of it actually developing and giving you my opinion on this. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking this morning. So speaking of rocking, it is a rocking morning up here in the Great Lakes region. Very active. We have this line of storms about to move into the Chicago area. Storms are already moving into Milwaukee. We have this Boeing line of storms in lower Michigan. So the models did nail that. They did pretty well. The HRRR model, I would say, did the best. Now, I would say that they struggled early on yesterday. In fact, when I dropped the video yesterday evening, I was like, dang, the models are just everywhere. There was an area of storms that kind of moved through southern Wisconsin earlier yesterday evening that models really weren't showing, but sure enough, it formed. This is sort of a Ridge Rider setup, and these are notoriously hard to really figure out. They are very difficult to figure out, and today will be no different, but we're going to give you guys our best guess at it, that's for sure. So we got all this activity ongoing. We got storms forming in southern Iowa. We got a cluster of rain here in Kansas, a little rain on the cooler side of this trough. Up here in South Dakota, a little rain dancing off the coast of the Carolinas. We got this spin up here in New Brunswick delivering some rain. And then we have a little bit of moisture flowing into the southwest. So that's what's going on right now. Watch as morning's advisories in the orange, as heat advisories in the pink or the purple color. You would say, excessive heat warnings are in place. Very hot temperatures in the Mississippi Delta region are expected. The heat indices feels like temperatures will exceed well over 105 degrees in certain areas. Heat advisories for the low country of South Carolina, southern Georgia, the panhandle of Florida. They remain in place for New Jersey, southeast PA, and areas of Delaware. Severe thunderstorm watches up in this pink. These will expire as this line of storms continues to move through. And then we do have some red flag warnings and excessive heat warnings and heat advisories scattered across the Rockies and the western U.S. But, 95% of this is dominated by heat. So the excessive rainfall outlook we are watching down here in southern Arizona. I think tomorrow will be a bigger threat of flash flooding for the desert Southwest. Today will be kind of like yesterday, just some on and off, very isolated showers. Tomorrow, much more widespread stuff, so we'll speak on that in the next video, but we will talk about what's going to happen today once we get to the western U.S. timestamp. There is a risk of flash flooding, and this is really more so what's going on right now in the upper Midwest. That yellow area means there's at least a 15% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance. Now, the Storm Prediction Center outlook. I want to reiterate this. This information could change, guys. It could change. But this is what we got right now is around 10 after 7 Eastern time, 10 after 6 Central time. Slight risk extending from southern South Dakota, covering up all of eastern Nebraska, all of the southern half of Iowa, areas of eastern Kansas, almost the entire state of Missouri, going right through the middle of Indiana and Illinois, and extending all the way up into lower Michigan. But this is really for what's going on right now, and it does include a very small section of extreme western sections of Ohio, and there is little small areas of Kentucky included into this. slight risk up. Kansas City, St. Louis, Indianapolis, Chicago, Des Moines, Omaha, Lincoln, higher populated areas are included in this. Tornado risk will be confined more so up to the boundary in eastern Nebraska, southern Iowa, extreme northern sections of Missouri. 2% risk of a tornado. This could bump up. Wind threat. I fully expect this to increase. Very large area that has a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Two things I think that will happen, or either one or the other. One thing they can do here is they're going to add a shot at significant winds. And I think they'll put a hatched risk somewhere. I'm not sure where it's going to be. I would say it would be somewhere here, like in Missouri, western Illinois, maybe southern Iowa. I think they'll put a 10% risk of winds exceeding that 75 miles per hour or higher. And I do think there's a solid chance they bump it up to a wind-driven enhanced risk. But I could be wrong, guys. And the reason I don't think that they have bumped it up yet, they see exactly what I see, is because the confidence is everywhere as far as the evolution of these storms. Ridge Rider setups are tough to figure out, but I do think there's a higher wind risk than this. But we'll watch. Hail threat. In the yellow area, that's a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. And you do have that hatched risk. That's a 10% risk, which does include Omaha. And by the way, congratulations to the Tennessee Volunteers. You guys winning the World Series. Luckily, you guys can be heading out of town before these nasty storms have an opportunity to move in. And sorry for my Aggie fans, just the way it is sometimes. But, at least you got there. My Gamecocks, which won 2 back-to-back national championships back in 2010, 2011. And got there in 2012, but, haven't been to Omaha since. So we hadn't even got there. But 10% risk of hail exceeding 2 inch in diameter or larger in the hatched risk area. So let's break down the southeast first. Most of the southeast is quiet today, except Florida. And, of course, we could get some thunderstorms in other areas too, but more pulse in nature, meaning they pop up, dump a lot of rain on one area, and then your neighbor up the road, 2 miles up the road, is yelling at you saying, man, you didn't share your rain. This is the kind of summer flow out here. I've literally have seen it rain on one side of the road and not the other. And that's how it is when you have stagnant airflow out here, no push in the atmosphere to move this rain anywhere. So we get into this afternoon, a lot of widespread shower and storm activity in Florida. There's an opportunity of rain here. I don't think there's a big flash flooding risk here because they'll pop up and then they'll kind of diminish. Could get some storms in eastern South Carolina where, a lot of moisture in the atmosphere at the surface will still be hanging around, which is why you got those heat advisories, high humidity. Some pop-up downpours in South Georgia, which is where we need the rain. Some downpours are possible in southeast Louisiana. And, of course, you can get some downpours and maybe some storms in the panhandle of Florida, southern Mississippi, and Alabama. But as we get into this evening, into the overnight hours, it remains pretty quiet. Of course, we got all the energy you're seeing up here, but we'll break that down in a separate timestamp. But outside of that, guys, I think Florida will be the most active weather-wise today. But as far as temperatures, brutal temperatures in Arkansas, the deep south, eastern Texas. It's warming back up in Nashville after a break from the heat. This is actual air temperatures, okay? This is heat indices. Excessive heat warnings right here in the Mississippi Delta, including Memphis. So this feels like temperatures. Let's back it up here. Feels like temperatures right into here for about the hottest time of the day. Your heat index, guys, will be getting, and this was yesterday. What are you doing? All right, come on, get it together. Even worse, right? Your heat index exceeding 110 to almost 115 in the Delta region. Very hot, dangerous temperatures in this area. So, you guys have already been hot. It's going to be hot again. It is wild, and I'm very low on time, so I don't know why I'm getting sidetracked here. It just seems like Arkansas, like western Tennessee, Mississippi, up to Missouri, areas of Oklahoma, and then eastern Texas, have just seen some wide range of weather over the last few years. It seems like your summers are brutally hot, brutally humid. It seems like more humid than I can ever remember. Maybe I'm wrong. You guys might say, Mitch, you don't know what you're talking about. It's always been this hot and humid. But has it been this hot and humid? It is insane. And then your winters have been pretty brutal also. like the last few years, you guys have gotten, Arctic air masses. I mean, you've gotten some freak winter storms. I mean, of course, we don't want to bring up the infamous February 2021, but I mean, even after that, there's been, last winter, you've had some very brutal summers and some pretty wild winters. Us here east of the Appalachian Mountains, I was talking about on social media, the weather has been, I'm going to use the word, it's been downright boring. I mean, we've had typical summers. We've had no winters. So you guys if you like crazy weather, certainly get west of the Appalachian Mountains, out here in the south central U.S. and just the western sections of the Deep South. It's pretty wild how different the weather is in Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi compared to like eastern Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas. It really has been. But anyways, sorry to get off topic there, but very hot day in the Deep South. The Northeast today, it's pretty quiet. Some energy will move out of, Ontario, Quebec, and try to make it to the interior New England region in the form of some showers this evening. Buffalo, Rochester, Finger Lakes region, maybe all the way to Vermont. Could get some shower activity, maybe some burst of heavy rain, overnight to the Tuckahoe Plateau, the Adirondacks, maybe enough to, make the ground wet by the time you wake up tomorrow morning. But all in all, it's a pretty quiet day, especially during daylight hours today. So not really a whole lot to speak on. Tomorrow will be different, though. There will be a threat of strong to severe storms, so we'll spend a lot more time on the Northeast in the next video. The South Central U.S., similar thing. It's pretty quiet out here. Now, I will mention very conditional, isolated threat of some strong to severe storms across, maybe areas of eastern Colorado, eastern New Mexico, the Panhandle of Texas, and western Oklahoma, all the way into Kansas. And the further northeast you work, the higher the shot of strong to severe storms there is. And sure enough, here's these storms popping up in northern Oklahoma, Panhandle of Texas, and the temperature is going to be very hot in this area. So when these storms form, they're going to have a lot of storm energy to work with. It's just, is there going to be enough push in the atmosphere to really keep these going? And sure enough, they form, and then they kind of implode, they weaken. But whoever gets hit by these storms that could form in maybe Oklahoma, Texas, they certainly can pack a punch. It's kind of one of those days where you only got a 20 to 30% chance of storms, but if you get hit by one, you're certainly going to know it. But you get into the overnight hours, you get into Wednesday morning, and of course we're going to discuss this here in a second, but the immediate southern plains, pretty quiet, and the temperatures absolutely brutal. These are actual air temperatures, guys. Once again, I'm on Monday. What's going on? Tuesday. I did the same thing for the Deep South. This is Tuesday. Not as hot as yesterday, but pretty darn hot. Temperatures well into the hundreds in certain areas. It could get to 105 degrees right where a storm pops up, and then it'll immediately cool you down. So just a typical hot summer across the southern and central plains. Now, we'll spend some time here, the north central U.S., HRR model initializing with these storms horribly right now. We got storms all the way into southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, all the way back here in Iowa. So I'll tell you right off the dot, then that could mean that the models are going to struggle with this on down the road. And I mean on down the road into this afternoon, into this evening. But we continue to move this forward. Just a wide look. HRR model gets this energy down into northern Indiana, northern Ohio as we get into this afternoon. You guys could deal with some showers and storms. And then we just watch all this energy down here stretching from southeast South Dakota, eastern Nebraska, Iowa, down to Missouri, Midwest, Ohio Valley even. And look at all those clusters of storms. So I know you're thinking, well, that was way too fast, Mitch. Well, here we go. We're going to zoom into it. So this is going to include southern South Dakota and Nebraska. Listen, it's kind of a weird setup here in this area. We get into this afternoon, about 3 or 4 o'clock. We get to about 5 o'clock. Nothing's going on. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Then bang, some storms start to form around 6 to 7 o'clock. These will have the best opportunity to produce significant hail and a tornado. Damaging wind still a threat too. But the reason is because on the western area of this boundary, that's where your best opportunity for these to be supercell in nature. You notice how they're discrete, like right up here, Sioux Falls, Sioux Cities area, Omaha down here, Lincoln. This is where you want to watch out for very large hail and a tornado risk. And I do think eventually these will grow up scale. But if you live, extreme northeast sections of Nebraska, southeast South Dakota. Watch out if you live and you're tuning in from that region. Once you get a little bit further west of Nebraska, west of South Dakota, not as big of a deal, but still a threat, especially the further east you work, but mainly more so right here where Iowa, South Dakota, and Nebraska meet. So there's a chance in Omaha you might not get a drop of rain today, but there's a chance also, the higher end scenario, you get large hail or even a tornado. So, don't ignore the threat today, even though this particular run of the HRRR model does not show, a worrisome scenario, if you will. If we look at that updraft velocity swath, there's that rotation showing up with that one storm that kind of forms right in here along the South Dakota Nebraska line. So you want to watch right into here especially, but you also want to watch on down into here also. Okay, and of course, I would draw that circle further east too, but we're just covering Nebraska and surrounding states. But moving forward here though, and looking at my friends here across the Midwest, and we're going to include southern half of Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and Missouri, and all the other states you see on your screen. This morning, there is a lot going on. Just remember, you look at the actual radar. This will come in here in a second if you give it a minute. This is what's actually going on right now. We got, this cluster of storms moving through areas of southern Iowa, severe storms moving through northern Illinois, even a severe warning storm down here in like central Indiana. Okay, so models aren't really handling this that great at all. This is what it's saying. This is what it's saying is happening right about right now. Right? It's not showing those storms at all. So that's something to watch. But we'll compare this with the NAM too, even though I didn't plan to. But you start to get into this afternoon, 3 p.m. shows these line of storms kind of re-energizing as they are surging through kind of slowly down into Indiana. But listen, 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, there might not be a line of storms into Indiana. This might be all the way down here. But this run of the HRRR model says, hey, there's at least a threat of a line of storms making its way through central Indiana and then areas of Illinois. But this very well could extend all the way over here, right? When we get into this evening, no doubt there's going to be strong to severe storms that pop up here in central to southern Iowa. And some of these will be supercells. And you see these storms up here, kind of west of Des Moines, near Ames. These are going to be the ones that have an opportunity to produce a tornado. These will too. But, the thing that I worry about is all these are going to cluster up. This is around 10 p.m. and really turn into a nasty Boeing line of storms and turn into a big-time damaging wind threat with embedded tornadoes. So you want to watch all these clusters of storms in Illinois, even into Indiana. These could already be extending into northern Missouri. And then, this looks like it dies out based off this run. This is around 2 a.m. And then a more intense line of storms develops since the wee hours of the morning kind of moves out of southeast Iowa and grinds down the Missouri-Illinois state line and heads right towards St. Louis as we're waking up tomorrow morning. And this line of storms could mean business if something like that was to happen. Now, if you look at the NAM, we'll look at the NAM too. The NAM is initializing better. It shows these storms up here. It shows these storms in southern Iowa. It does show all this dying out. Okay? Huge difference here, right? This is around 3 p.m. This is what the NAM's showing at 3 p.m. This is what the HRRR model is showing at 3 p.m. Right? A line of storms. HRRR. All right. NAM. Nothing. Nothing on the NAM. But the NAM does show the energy forming in Iowa. And it does show clusters of storms, kind of like the HRRR model, drifting back through Illinois, Indiana, even all the way back to Ohio. Look at this line of storms further back here to the west compared to the HRRR model. This one slams St. Louis in the middle of the night, but totally whiffs, Kansas City, but totally whiffs St. Louis tomorrow morning. It weakens. So there is a lot of scenarios here. And this is going to be a tough one, guys. This is the updraft velocity swath based off the HRRR model. Shows it's a little bit of rotation embedded in some of these clusters of storms that do develop this afternoon to this evening in Illinois and Indiana. And then we watch this main line right in here that moves out of Iowa. And of course, we have strong indication of rotation with these storms that do form in Iowa 2% risk of a tornado, but certainly some rotation with these storms are possible. And then you look at projected wind speeds. Then this is going to show it in swaths, so it's going to show hour by hour intervals. And we keep this going, guys, and shows this cluster of storms, indicating what, 50, 60, 75 mile per hour winds with some of these clusters. And then it shows these storms forming in Iowa. And then it shows a nasty line of storms sweeping through and kind of rounding the eastern side of the ridge through Missouri. So wherever storms do form, might have an opportunity to produce 60 to 80 mile per hour winds, I think. Okay, so please be aware. We just got to figure out where these storms form. That's a big question. So the western U.S., the only thing that's really going on is, just some showers, maybe some storms out here in the southern Rockies and the southwest. And you see them kind of dancing around across these states. And a little bit closer look at this. Could get some showers, if you live in sections of western Nevada, really anywhere in Arizona, southern Utah, maybe across the Rockies and areas of Colorado, areas of New Mexico could see it. And some of these could be in the form of storms. We'll have to see what happens with these. And, these could dump a quarter inch, half an inch of rain. More kind of put together area of kind of cluster of rain this evening, maybe cruising across north central and then northern sections of Nevada, eventually into areas of Idaho. So we'll have to watch what this does. Rainfall between now and the next 24 hours, not indicating a lot, but someone could sneak in a half an inch at worst case scenario, or best case scenario, some might add. So, but I think tomorrow is the bigger rain day across this area, and we'll speak on that in the next video. But temperatures, more comfortable up here in the upper Midwest and the Northeast, warming up compared to yesterday, but 70s, 80s. You get south of the boundary, you get into the 90s and the 100s. It's pretty as simple as that, so pretty hot temperatures. And out west, pretty hot day across the plains, and nothing too crazy compared to average one way or the other. It's certainly warming up across the entire western U.S. Pretty hot temperatures. Hot enough to, to pump out those heat advisories and a couple excessive heat warnings out here. But it's nothing compared to what you guys, aren't used to out here. That's for sure. So, severe weather risks to come. There is a large marginal risk stretching from eastern Oklahoma all the way to Boston, Mass. All right, and then there's a slight risk covering up some higher populated regions: New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, D.C. area, Scranton, Pittsburgh. You guys have a slight risk, level 2 out of 5. And there is a marginal risk right into here. Tornado threat, 2% risk of a tornado tomorrow. Wind threat, 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then the hail threat, just 5% risk. So there is a severe weather threat for tomorrow. And then rinse and repeat. We rewind it all the way back and start fresh from the northern plains and do it all over again. Day 3, and like I said, just the jet is scooted to the north. We have impulses of energy that come down out of Canada, and this prompts severe weather threats for the upper portion of the country. So slight risk already up for areas of Montana and the Dakotas and a very small section of Wyoming. The National Hurricane Center latest information. See if we got any more. Oh, we do. Look, cool. Latest information from 7/18 literally just dropped. There's a 20% chance of this tropical wave that's centered right here. It's done snuck into the Eastern Caribbean to develop somewhere in this area right here in the next 7 days. The Western Caribbean to the Bay of Campeche. We'll see if that happens. Doesn't have any other area highlighted. Okay, so we'll watch for that, and we just kind of look at the satellite right here, and we'll kind of circle a couple areas here. This is that wave right into here, okay, that's going to just kind of meander across the Caribbean and then try to develop somewhere into here. Very low chance, though. The other areas that you watch is pretty much anywhere right into here. There's a lot of Saharan dry dust right up on top of these storms, but model guidance likes something consolidating, forming in this area that I just circled, and over the next 7 days, getting into maybe this area right into here, and maybe trying to develop into something. Okay, but it's going to take a good week for this to cross the Atlantic out here, the main development region. But it really is trying to latch on to one of these waves. But I can tell you, models do this a lot in the hurricane season, especially early on, and it always underdoes the dry air on top. But I will continue to kind of show you what some of these models show. The GFS, just watch, just occasional L's pop up on your screen down here in the tropical Atlantic, the main development region. And I'm going to start this around Thursday morning. Just see the blobs of green down here. Here's one L popping up. Okay. And you just see, this more, put together area of green, this area, these areas. It's a lot of moisture rounding the belt down here in the tropical Atlantic. And you see this little impulse of energy. There's our tropical wave that has that 20% chance to develop. And you keep this going. It tries to latch on this, pops off an L here this coming Sunday evening. Takes this wave kind of where the one in front of it takes it right into the Lesser Antilles, then takes it into deep down in the Eastern Caribbean. And then it gets this one also. Wants to try to form this one. And this is kind of the one that maybe the European likes too. But it really doesn't develop any of them. It really don't. On this run of the almost said the HRRR model. On this run of the GFS, it doesn't develop either one of them. Now you look at the European, same thing. A lot of clusters of green down here indicating a lot of moisture riding. There's our wave here entering the Western Caribbean. Does it develop? It does not. And we kind of keep this rolling. We get into this weekend. We get into Sunday evening. We get into next Monday morning. We get into 1 week from today. And see this area in green here starting to enter the Lesser Antilles. Then it starts to affect the Greater Antilles and Puerto Rico. And then about 9 days from now, develops an all-out tropical system. Well, this is about 10 days from now. And it looks like it's about to head north, probably because this ridge of high pressure is centered way off to the east. So it's starting to develop a tropical system 10 days out. But guys, that's 10 days out. So we look at some, ensemble guidance. And this is this is the European ensemble. Between now and the next week, takes us all the way out to the evening of July 2nd. So 1 week. Actually, it takes us just a tick past 1 week. That's as far out as I want to go. Develops something right in here. It latches on to some kind of energy out here in the central Atlantic. And then you see all these L's. The European ensemble makes up about 51 members. So, it has, I'll try to count them all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Let's just say it has over half the members developing something, right? But a lot of them are very weak. Like a 1010 millibar low is very weak. A 996 is the stronger outlier. It's a good bit stronger. But most of these are weak. But there is a signal. You look at the GFS ensemble, only makes up 31 members. So, it looks like it has, about 10 to 15 members out here. That's about half the members also. Trying to latch on to something and then getting it into the Caribbean. But these are some pretty weak lows for the most part. So we'll try to figure this one out, guys. There's a lot of chatter about this in the community. Just be careful what you believe. A lot of the times, these do not end up working out here in the Atlantic this time of the year because of the dust and dry air. But God bless all y'all. Stay safe today out in the Midwest, and I'll talk to you guys soon.